Open your refrigerator and look at the back shelf. Not the front where the milk sits. Not the drawer where the lettuce goes soft. The back shelf, that is where food goes to be forgotten. A little container of leftovers. A bag of berries you meant to eat. Half a cucumber wrapped in plastic. A carton of something you bought with good intentions. Then, 3 days later, you open the door, and that smell hits you. Not strong enough to make you gag. Just enough to tell you something in there has already started turning. Most people blame the food. My father-in-law blamed the refrigerator. That sounded strange to me the first time I heard it. I had married into an Amish family, and I was still learning that practical people often see problems from the other direction. I saw spoiled food. He saw the conditions that allowed food to spoil faster. One afternoon I opened his refrigerator and noticed something sitting near the back, a little coil of copper mesh. At first I thought somebody had dropped a kitchen scrubber in there by mistake. That was all he said, which of course made me more curious. I asked what it was doing there. Now, I will admit that sounded like nonsense to me. A piece of copper sitting in a refrigerator, helping the air. I thought maybe this was one of those old habits people keep doing, because their grandparents did it, not because it actually works. But he was not guessing. He was using something old families had known in one form or another for thousands of years. Copper is not just a pretty metal. It has natural antimicrobial properties. That means certain bacteria do not live well on copper surfaces. Long before anybody had a refrigerator, people noticed that water stored in copper vessels stayed fresher than water stored in some other containers. Ancient households used copper. Old water systems used copper. Even door hardware in older buildings was often brass or bronze, both copper-containing metals. They did not always know the science. They knew the result. Things stayed cleaner around copper. That is the part modern kitchens forgot. Your refrigerator is cold, but cold is not the same as clean. Cold slows spoilage. It does not stop it. Bacteria can still live in a refrigerator. Mold can still grow. Leftovers can still turn. Strawberries can still soften. Lettuce can still become slimy. The cold only slows the clock. It does not remove the clock. That was the lesson my father-in-law wanted me to understand. He never treated a refrigerator like a magic box. He treated it like a cold room that still needed help staying clean. Most refrigerators today are lined with plastic, glass, and stainless steel. Those surfaces are easy to wipe. They look clean. But looking clean and actively fighting microbes are two different things. Stainless steel may look sterile, but it does not automatically kill bacteria just because it shines. Plastic does not either. Copper is different. When moisture and air touch copper, tiny copper ions can be released from the surface. Those ions can damage certain microbes when they come into contact with the copper surface. That is the basic idea. No perfume. No electricity. No filter cartridge. Just a metal doing what that metal does. Now let me be careful. This does not mean you can put a copper scrubber in the refrigerator and stop cleaning. It does not mean spoiled food becomes safe again. It does not mean you can keep leftovers forever. My father-in-law would have laughed at that kind of foolishness. Bad food is still bad food. Dirty shelves still need washing. Old containers still need to be thrown out. The copper is not a miracle. It is one extra layer. And that is how old households thought. Layers, not one big solution. A clean fridge, covered food, proper temperature, good airflow, and a small piece of copper near the air movement. That was the system. The thing that surprised me most was how cheap it was. He was not buying some special appliance part. He used a simple copper mesh scrubber, the kind sold in cleaning aisles for a few dollars. But there was one rule. It had to be real copper, not copper-colored plastic, not copper-coated steel if you can avoid it. Real copper mesh. That matters because the copper surface is the useful part. If it is only colored to look like copper, you bought decoration, not the thing doing the work. He placed the copper mesh loosely near the back of the shelf, close to where air moved inside the refrigerator, not touching open food, not sitting in a puddle, not blocking the vent, just sitting where circulating air could pass around it. That was the whole installation. No tools, no drilling, no batteries, no complicated setup, just a small copper coil in the right place. I asked him how often he replaced it. He said when it falls apart. That made me laugh. But he meant it. Copper darkens over time. It tarnishes. It may turn brown or greenish. Most people see that and think it is ruined. He did not. He said, that is what working looks like. Now you still clean it if it gets dirty. You still keep the fridge sanitary. But tarnish by itself does not mean the copper has become useless. It means the surface has changed from exposure to air and moisture. That is normal. The first week after I saw his copper coil, I tried it in our own refrigerator. I did not expect much. Honestly, I thought it would be one of those little old tricks that sounded better than it worked. But after a while, I noticed something. The refrigerator smelled cleaner. The produce seemed to hold a little longer. The back shelf did not get that stale smell as quickly. Was it magic? No. Was it replacing basic food safety? No. But as one small layer in a refrigerator that was already being cleaned and kept cold, it made sense. And that is the key. That is something my father-in-law taught me over and over again. He never looked for one miracle solution. He looked for 5 simple habits that worked together. The copper was only one of them. He cleaned the refrigerator every week. Not a deep cleaning, just enough to wipe away spills before they became tomorrow's bacteria. He never left leftovers sitting for weeks. He labeled containers with the date they went into the refrigerator. Fresh food stayed toward the front. Older food moved forward where it couldn't be forgotten. Simple habits, nothing exciting, but they worked. One Saturday afternoon, I asked him something that had been bothering me. He thought for a moment before answering. That answer sent me looking for more information. The more I read, the more surprised I became. Researchers have studied copper surfaces for years. Hospitals have tested copper on frequently touched surfaces because certain microbes survive for much shorter periods on copper than on materials like stainless steel. Scientists even have a name for this natural antimicrobial behavior. They call it the oligodynamic effect. The name sounds complicated. The idea isn't. Certain metals, especially copper, can damage many microorganisms when they come into direct contact with the metal surface. That's the important part. Astronautic copper isn't filling your refrigerator with invisible magic. It's simply creating one more surface that doesn't allow many microbes to survive as easily as they would on plastic or stainless steel. My father-in-law never explained it with scientific words. That was practical enough for him. One thing he warned me about surprised me. That's good advice for almost anything. No, your refrigerator temperature still matters. Your food handling still matters. Whether you wash the produce still matters. Whether you leave the refrigerator door open every 5 minutes still matters. Copper doesn't replace common sense. It supports it. Think of it this way. If you have a clean refrigerator, good food storage habits, and proper temperature, the copper simply becomes another small advantage. The same way weather stripping helps a well-built house, the same way a clean furnace filter helps a good heating system. Small improvements quietly add up. That was one of the biggest lessons I learned after marrying into an Amish family. Old Amish households rarely depended on one big solution. They trusted many small ones. One evening I watched my father-in-law cleaning vegetables before putting them away. He wasn't scrubbing them perfectly. He was simply removing dirt from the garden. Then he dried them. Only then did they go into the refrigerator. I asked why. He smiled. Again, another simple sentence. Another lesson. The refrigerator isn't where food becomes healthy. It's where healthy food stays healthy longer. That changed the way I looked at storage. I stopped throwing everything into the refrigerator the moment I came home from the grocery store. I started thinking about preparation first. Dry the lettuce. Store berries properly. Seal leftovers. Keep raw meat away from ready-to-eat foods. Little things. The copper coil fit naturally into that system. Not because it solved everything, because it quietly supported everything else. A few weeks later, a neighbor stopped by. He opened the refrigerator while helping unload groceries. He looked at the copper scrubber and laughed. I laughed too. Then I explained why it was there. A month later, he told me he had put one in his own refrigerator. Not because he expected miracles. Not because he expected miracles, because for a few dollars he figured it was worth adding another layer of protection. That word comes up often when I think about my father-in-law. Layers. He layered protection into almost everything. a clean refrigerator, good food rotation, proper temperature, covered containers, and one small copper coil. None of those things alone changed everything. Together they made a noticeable difference. People often ask me if I still keep one in my refrigerator today. I do. Not because I believe it's magic, because I understand what it's actually doing. There's a big difference. The older I get, the more I realize understanding something is often more valuable than simply copying it. If someone tells you to put copper in your refrigerator but never explains why, you'll probably stop doing it the first time you clean the shelves. If you understand the purpose, you'll remember it. That was another gift my father-in-law gave me. He rarely told me what to do. He helped me understand why. Once you understand why, the habit usually takes care of itself. So if you decide to try this yourself, keep your expectations honest. Buy a 100% copper mesh scrubber. Place it loosely near the back of the refrigerator where air circulates. Keep your refrigerator clean. Store food properly. Watch expiration dates. Don't expect the copper to replace good food safety. Let it become one more quiet habit working alongside the others, because that's how most useful things work, not with dramatic promises, with steady results. If there's one lesson hidden inside this little copper coil, it's probably this. My father-in-law never waited for food to spoil before thinking about freshness. He tried to create conditions where spoilage happened more slowly. That difference sounds small, it isn't. One mindset waits for problems. The other quietly prevents them. And over the years I've found that the quieter habits often become the ones that save us the most money, the most time, and sometimes even the most food. Now I'm curious. What's the oldest thing sitting in the back of your refrigerator right now? If you're brave enough, go look. You might find tomorrow's dinner or yesterday's science experiment.